If a man is sensible, he can easily bear misfortunes. First, because his reason tells him that all misfortunes pass away and frequently are transformed into blessings. Please continue watching for more wisdom from Leo Tolstoy, vegetarian.
Yes, human beings have slaughtered millions of animals for their meat, without realizing that on the invisible plane, those animals are linked to other human beings, and it is they who will now have to share the fate of the animals. When we slaughter animals, we are slaughtering human beings. Master Omram Mikhail Ivanov, vegetarian.
The majestic mountains of the Republic of Adygea are a sight to behold. The friendly locals would smile warmly to be greeted with Sigwape Hituge, which means pleased to meet you in Adygea. I'm Alina. The hospitable people of Adygea send loving and kind wishes to all. May our prayers for a vegan world soon become a reality as humans awaken to their compassionate nature and the merciful grace of God. Welcome to The Power of Thought, selections from The Pathway of Life by Leo Tolstoy, vegetarian, Volume 2, Part 1 of 2, on Words of Wisdom. Everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing himself. This insightful saying by Leo Tolstoy is a valuable reminder for all of us to reflect inwardly. The renowned 19th century Russian author suggested that we ask ourselves what God really wants us to do. As Leo Tolstoy said, in the name of God, stop a moment, cease your work, look around you. A novel by Tolstoy is not a work of art, but piece of life, stated Matthew Arnold, a 19th century British poet and critic. In addition to his renowned epic novels, Leo Tolstoy wrote essays and letters that conveyed the spiritual truths he came to realize during the course of his life. Along with adopting and promoting the vegetarian diet, he became deeply interested in spirituality and living by the ethical teachings of Christ. The concepts he conveyed through his writings about peace and the fulfillment of God's will greatly influenced 20th century leaders like Mahatma Gandhi and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Supreme Master Ching Hai spoke about the uplifting nature of Leo Tolstoy's work during a group meditation session with our association members in July 1997 in Los Angeles, USA.
Because Tolstoy was a practitioner, That's why when you read his story, almost a story about spirituality, about God, and very happy, very positive. It's very good to read him, to read his book. You try it. If you haven't, you try. You can read more, Such thing is very good for you.
Today, we would like to share with you an insightful excerpt from Volume 2 of The Pathway of Life called Thought, where Leo Tolstoy reminds us of the importance of right thinking and how thought is the starting point of all actions, whether good or bad. Thought. Even as a man can restrain himself from committing an act, if he realizes that it is evil, so can a man restrain himself from a thought which attracts him, if he acknowledges it to be evil. This restraint in thought is the chief source of strength of man, because all acts have their inception in thoughts. The purpose of thought. You cannot deliver yourself from sins, errors, and superstitions by a physical effort. Deliverance is possible only through an effort of thought. Only by thought can you teach yourself to be unselfish, humble, and truthful. Only when a man strives in his thoughts after self-abnegation, humility, and truthfulness will he have strength to fight with sin, errors, and superstitions in his deeds. Though thought did not reveal to us the necessity of love, thought could not reveal this. Thought plays an important part in pointing out that which obstructs love. This very effort of thought against that which obstructs love, this very effort of thought, I repeat, is more significant, needful, and precious than all other things. If man did not think, he could not comprehend why he lives. And if he did not comprehend why he lives, he could not know what is good and what is evil. Therefore, nothing is more precious to man than right thinking. People speak of moral and religious teaching and of science as though they were two distinct guides of man. In reality, however, there is only one guide, conscience. That is the consciousness of the voice of God who dwells in us. This voice decides beyond doubt for each man what he ought and what he ought not to do. And this voice may be summoned at all times from within by any man through an effort of thought. If a man did not know that he could see with his eyes, and for that reason refrained from opening them, he would be very pitiable indeed. Even more is to be pitied he who does not realize that the power to think was granted him for the purpose of calmly bearing all misfortunes. If a man is sensible, he can easily bear misfortunes. First, because his reason tells him that all misfortunes pass away and frequently are transformed into blessings. And second, because with a rational man, all misfortunes rebound to his benefit. Yet people, instead of facing misfortunes, boldly endeavor to avert them. Is it not better to rejoice that God has given us power, not to grieve over what occurs independent of our will, and to thank Him that He has put our soul under subjection only to that which is in our own power, namely to our reason? For He did not put our soul under subjection to our parents, nor to our brothers, nor to wealth, nor to our body, nor to death. In His mercy, He put it under subjection only to that which depends on us, to our thoughts. And we must observe these thoughts and their purity with all our strength. When we recognize a new thought and find that it is true, it seems to us as though we had known it for a long time and merely remember what we already knew. All truth is already implanted in the soul of every man. Only do not choke it with falsehood, and sooner or later it will reveal itself to you. It may frequently happen that a thought visits you which seems both true and strange, and you dare not trust it. But after a while, having carefully thought over the matter, you will see that the thought which had seemed passing strange is the simplest kind of truth, so that the moment you recognize, you can never cease believing it. All great truths, before passing into the consciousness of man, must inevitably go through three phases. The first, this is so absurd, it's not worth considering. Second, this is against all morals and religion. Third, this is so obvious, it's not worth talking about. When you live together with others, do not forget the things which you have learned in solitude. And in solitude, consider those things which you learned from companionship with others. We can attain wisdom by three ways. First, by way of experience. This is the most difficult way. Second, by way of imitation. This is the easiest way. And third, by way of meditation. And this is the noblest way. The life of man is determined by his thoughts. The fate of man, whatever it be, depends solely upon his manner of understanding his life through his thoughts. All great changes in the life of the individual and of the human race have their inception and completion in thought. A change of feelings and actions requires first of all a preceding change of thought. In order to transform an evil life into a good life, it is needful first of all to try and understand why the life became so evil and what must be done in order to make it good. Therefore, in order to make life better, it is necessary first to think and then to act. It would be well if wisdom could be poured out of one man who has much into another who has little, even as water is poured from one vessel into another, until there is an equal quantity in both. But in order to be able to receive wisdom from another, a man must first think for himself.
Go ahead, make war, and prepare to count how much you can take with you into your coffin.
Welcome to The Power of Thought, selections from The Pathway of Life by Leo Tolstoy, Vegetarian, Volume 2, Part 2 of 2, on Words of Wisdom. Everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing himself. This insightful saying by Leo Tolstoy is a valuable reminder for all of us to reflect inwardly. The renowned 19th century Russian author suggested that we ask ourselves what God really wants us to do. As Leo Tolstoy said, in the name of God, stop a moment, cease your work, look around you. A novel by Tolstoy is not a work of art, but a piece of life, stated Matthew Arnold, a 19th century British poet and critic. In addition to his renowned epic novels, Leo Tolstoy wrote essays and letters that conveyed the spiritual truths he came to realize during the course of his life. Along with adopting and promoting the vegetarian diet, he became deeply interested in spirituality and living by the ethical teachings of Christ. The concepts he conveyed through his writings about peace and the fulfillment of God's will greatly influenced 20th century leaders like Mahatma Gandhi and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Supreme Master Ching Hai spoke about the uplifting nature of Leo Tolstoy's work during a group meditation session with our association members in July 1997 in Los Angeles, USA.
Because Tolstoy was a practitioner, That's why when you read his story, almost a story about spirituality, about God, and very happy, very positive. It's very good to read him, to read his book. You try. If you haven't, you try. You can read more, Such thing is very good for you.
Let us continue with the insightful excerpt called Thought from Volume 2 of The Pathway of Life, where Leo Tolstoy expounds the concept that right living starts with right thinking and how we can train our minds towards this. Thought. The life of man is determined by his thoughts. All that is truly needful to man must be obtained with laborious and constant toil. Thus do we acquire crafts and all sorts of knowledge, and even thus is acquired that which is the most needful thing in life, the art of living a good life. In order to learn how to live right, you must first teach yourself how to think right. The transition of our life from one stage to another is determined not by visible acts, which we commit by our will, marriage, removal to another place of residence, change of profession, but by the thoughts which come to us as we walk or in the dead of night or as we eat, particularly by such thoughts as embrace the whole of our past, saying, "You acted wrongly, you ought to have acted differently," and all of our following acts, like slaves, serve these thoughts and obey their will. Our habits of thought lend their peculiar hue to all things with which we come in contact. If these thoughts are false, they will render false the most exalted truths. Our habits of thought form something far more substantial for us than the house we dwell in. We carry them about with us even as the snail carries the shell in which it lives. Our desires will not become good until we correct our habits of thought. Habits of thought determine desires, and habits of thought are formed by communing with the results of the wisdom of the best man of the world. That which is at rest may be kept at rest. That which has not yet appeared may be easily prevented. That which is yet weak may be easily broken. That which is yet little may be easily scattered. The big tree started as a small twig. The 9-storied tower commenced with the laying of single bricks. Journeys of thousands of miles commence with the first step. Take care of your thoughts. They are the origin of acts. Our thoughts, good or evil, send us to paradise or to hell, not in the heavens or on the ground, but right there in this life. Some say that reason cannot be the guide of our life, but there are people whose reason is so corrupt that they cannot trust it. Even as the life and the fate of an individual are determined by that to which he pays less heed than to his acts, namely by his thoughts, so the life of communities and nations is not determined by the events occurring among them, but by the thoughts which unite the majority of the people in these communities and nations. Do not think that to be wise is the prerogative of some special people only. Wisdom is needful to all men, and therefore all men can be wise. Wisdom is to know wherein is the business of life and how to perform it. And in order to know this, only one thing is needful. Remember that thought is a great thing, and therefore think. A thought entered my mind, and then I forgot it. Well, never mind, it was only a thought. If it had been money, I should have turned everything upside down until I found it, but a mere thought. Yet gigantic oaks grow from acorns. Thought determines this or that act of an individual and of millions of men, and yet we dare to think that mere thought is a trifle. The chief source of human ills is not in men's acts, but in their thoughts. When misfortunes befall, you know that they are not due to what you have done, but to what you have thought. If we cannot restrain ourselves from committing a deed which we know is evil, it is due to the fact only that we first permitted ourselves to think of this evil act and failed to restrain our thoughts. Strive not to think of the things which you believe to be evil. More injurious than evil acts are those thoughts which lead to evil acts. An evil act need not be repeated, and it can be repented, but evil thoughts give birth to evil deeds. An evil act points the path to other evil acts. Evil thoughts drag you along upon the path to evil deeds. Fruit is born of a seed, even so, deeds are born of thoughts. Even as evil fruit is born of evil seed, so evil acts are born of evil thoughts. As a farmer separates good and true seed from the seed of weeds, and selects from among the good seed the choicest and guards and sorts it, even so a prudent man treats his thoughts. He repels vain and foolish thoughts, and preserves the good thoughts, cherishing and assorting them. If you do not repel evil thoughts, nor cherish good thoughts, you cannot avoid evil acts. Good deeds come from good thoughts only. Cherish good thoughts, searching for them in the books of wisdom and sensible conversations, and above all in your inner self. So that a lamp may give steady light, it must be placed where it is protected from the wind. But if a lamp be in a windy place, the light will flicker and cast strange and dark shadows. Even so, uncontrolled, foolish, and ill-assorted thoughts cast strange and dark shadows upon the soul of man.
We are in the 21st century. We have to evolve. We have to move forward. We don't need to eat meat. We don't need to kill animals for food. Mauricio Garcia Pereira, vegetarian.
Gracious viewers, thank you for joining us today for Words of Wisdom. Coming up next is The Shining World Award recipients, Compassion Towards People and Animal People in Need. Part 1 of 2, right after Noteworthy News. May the Providence be our guiding light as we journey through life.
Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule and suprememastertv.com/WOW.